take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube so you do not miss another camp update. Also, download the podcast everywhere that you get your podcast. I was actually trying to find other podcasts and shows out there that covered training camp, and I actually couldn't find one. So if you want to, download the audio version of this so that you can listen to it anywhere. And today, we are breaking down training camp number 7, which happened on Saturday. So nothing happened today on Sunday. So we're going back a day and just recapping all the things that you might have missed from the second day of pads, second public practice, and overall, a lot of the same stuff that we saw on Friday, but I have a couple key takeaways and also more information on when we might know if Caleb Williams is going to play. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell if you're out there on YouTube, because on Tuesday, we'll be going through a live preview of the Hall of Fame game, people to watch out for. And if you have missed one of those shows, and if you haven't seen one, we kind of go through all the different players and who to watch out for. So we try to make the Hall of Fame and all the preseason games as fun as possible. So now, let's go through what we always do. Let's break down the injuries, the big key takeaways from Saturday's practice, and also the last little bits of notes where we just do rapid fire key pieces. Also, Austin Booker updates. I knew a lot of y'all wanted to know Austin Booker stuff, so we have more on him. But let's get started with the unfortunate injuries. Kyler, Simba Webster, and Jacob Martin all still were out on Saturday, but good news, Sewell was back out there on the practice field, so at least one person's getting healthy. But speaking of healthy, we might have talked about this last episode, where we're like, okay, Nate Davis has been healthy, and we're like, knock on wood, Nate Davis has been healthy, but now he was out. Unfortunately, Nate Davis out, and now we saw Coleman Shelton. So we're actually going to kind of jump into our center update, because Coleman Shelton was the starter at center, which that was what we were already kind of expecting. But Shelton goes in at center, and then Bates goes over to right guard. And I want to talk about this a little bit, because this is the reason, so one of the reasons why we talked about, okay, if Ryan Bates is the better center than Coleman Shelton, do you still want him to be the center for you? Because he provides versatility. I just find it interesting that as soon as we see, and we have the unofficial depth chart, right? We know that the backup technically for that right guard spot is Matt Pryor. But now we see that, hey, Nate Davis goes down and they go out with Coleman Shelton at center, and then we have Ryan Bates at the right guard. Now this might also, so I find it very interesting, because this is the reason why we've said where if Ryan Bates is the better center, but he gives you better backup versatility, who do you want at that center position? Now, what I'm hoping is that a lot of times during these training camp practices, they will switch people around, put them in different positions, see different sets of people to see how they work all together. Because I think we all forget sometimes as fans, this is just a practice. So if you are a coach, you want to see, what does this look like with Bates at right guard, with Shelton at center? So something that I'm watching for is then on Monday, if Shelton is still going to be center and is Bates going to still be right guard if Nate Davis is out. So that's something that I just want to look at, is what happens if Nate Davis is gone for an extended period of time? Do we start to see a rotation at right guard? Also, Ja'Tyree Carter, we really haven't seen too many snaps with him when someone goes down on that guard spot. So are they more down on Carter and want to replace him with someone else as well? Just something for us to monitor at least. But of note, because the offensive line was not great, and that's why we wanted to bring up the center. Also, I did hear that the snaps were a little bit off a bit, which is a little nerve-wracking, because you're talking about Coleman Shelton, who has more experience at the center position. So the center still have that battle, and I still go back to what I said about the offensive line when we were previewing the O-line. This O-line, when healthy, is a solid unit. Like, not going to be a top 5 unit, But on paper, this is a solid unit when healthy. But the thing is, this unit has struggled to stay healthy, and that's the problem, because now you need that depth, which, okay, we added some depth, but is it enough? And I think that, unfortunately, is the frustrating part about this. Because also, we talked about that there was more penalties today. After we were talking about before, all the reports in the private practice from the media was, hey, they're not really doing any penalties. Like, this is looking good. Someone didn't knock on wood, and now we have 3 consecutive days of more penalties on the offense. And I believe it was Matt Eberflus was asked about this, and he talked about how in Friday, a lot of those false starts were because they were changing up the cadences. So because they were changing up the cadences, how they would snap the ball, the offense was accidentally jumping off. So that makes more sense. But they said, well, technically this time around on Saturday, it wasn't the new cadences. It was just the offensive line jumping and creating these false starts. And a lot of people out there were saying it's because Andrew Billings was yelling, move, right before they would snap the ball. And for those that don't know, when someone yells move on the defensive line, it's not just to try and get the O-line to just get startled and move. What it actually means too, Jason McKee was talking about this, when they would say move, the defensive line would shift over and move over to the side. And what that does is when they move, if you think about it as an offensive lineman, I got this guy, and then the person next to me has the guy next to him. But if everybody moves, if everybody shifts, that causes stress on the offensive line to say, oh, wait, who do we got? Who do we got? And then now that causes some stress. And Braxton Jones was asked about this as to why was there some false starts. And he really didn't put blame on Caleb Williams. He put more blame on it really felt like he was putting more blame on the offensive line. And it does seem like, hey, they're just trying to get off the line. They're trying to get off the snap so the D-line doesn't attack them. And yes, them yelling move is going to cause some confusion. Them just simply yelling it will cause confusion on when to go. But also with move and them moving and shifting, this causes a level of anxiety for the offensive line. I don't think it's a matter of this D-line is so insane. The offensive line needs to get better, period. You need to cut back on these because I don't put blame on Caleb for some of those. Even though there was one call that they said it was Caleb, he got the call off late, and then when he tried to snap it, he called the motion, and then it was a delay of game. So still some mistakes on this O-line. Hopefully it can get better. But we will go through Caleb Williams. Don't you worry about this. We got to talk about the trenches, because I know we love the trenches. The trenches are fun, especially because we're just hoping for growth, right? We know the secondary will be good. We know the wide receivers will be good. But what about the trenches? First off, we got to talk about Big 99. We got to talk about Dexter. He continues to look good, period. Right? Dexter continues to look good, and I don't want to call it that he's good now, that he's like, hey, you know what? We're set at 3-tech. I still want to see what he looks like going against other players, especially since we're saying the offensive line is still a little jumpy. But it's great to hear that he's looking like athletically comes in looking better and looking better going against everybody else, continuously causing havoc. If he can step up to what we want at that 3 technique, huge gains for this defense. It's a huge cog for this defense. So that's where I'm excited to see. Does he even play on Thursday for the Hall of Fame game? Probably not, but something that I want to see Dexter out there. I want to see him going against someone else, because is he the real deal? Like, is he finally kind of turning that page? But speaking of defensive tackles, let's talk about his friend Zach Pickens. Zach Pickens, from everything that I'm hearing, everything that is being reported, it doesn't seem like Pickens is taking that much of a jump. It sounds like he's kind of where he was before, where Pickens is more of this player that he can give you some of those splash plays, but consistency still lacks that. In one-on-ones on Saturday, he was put to the ground by Tevin Jenkins, so not a good sign from him. But overall, Zach Pickens, not having that jump that Gervon Dexter has. But hey, Pickens still last year, that's kind of what you expect. Some of the flash plays, but he's still just going to be that backup. Also, next, Braxton Jones continues to just do well. I know that he's gone against Walker and really kind of stood him up. Braxton Jones still looks good, right? And I think that's something worth noting because a lot of the pressure that happens or happened is now up the middle, or, we have Montez Sweat being Montez Sweat. And if Larry Borum's out there at left tackle, then you start to see the drop-off between a Braxton Jones and a Larry Borum. And then also, left guard, Bill Murray won both of his one-on-ones. And he also put Andrew Billings to the ground, which is an achievement in itself. So will Bill Murray make the roster? Someone that is probably going to be on my watch list for the Hall of Fame game, because I want to see this guy out there because supposedly he's looking good. So yet again, can he compete for a roster spot? Because this offensive line, you really just have to get the best players out there. So it's nice to hear. Obviously, you want to hear that your player, especially an offensive lineman, is looking good. And like I said, we have to talk about Austin Booker in the trenches. Austin Booker was out there for the 2-minute drill on Saturday. Now, he wasn't the starter, but he came in during that time, which is kind of like what we were expecting, where as they go through the 2-minute drill, when someone gets tired, you bring in Booker. So it's nice to hear that Booker being included in the defensive packages in the 2-minute drill. And also, too, he played inside and out, or he played outside and inside. So a little bit of D tackle as well, which, do I think he's going to be a D tackle? I kind of go back to what I said about the center position with Shelton and Bates, where they're probably just seeing, okay, if we start taking some of these defensive ends and moving them inside, and moving, even Gervon Dexter has played some defensive end during this training camp. If you start shifting these positions and confusing the offensive line, that's what you want. You can cause confusion, and if you cause confusion, that then can produce more sacks because they go, okay, wait, where are they playing? Why is he there? I wasn't doing my tape study on him, right? Why is Gervon lined up at the end and Booker inside? But also, too, Booker beat Jake Curhan with a sweet spin move. So it's nice to hear that, hey, this guy's got a spin move. So just showing some of those pass rush moves out there. But now, we're already 12 minutes in, and now we have to get to the Caleb report, where Caleb didn't necessarily have a great day, threw 2 interceptions in a row, and the first one really more so stared down the wide receiver. Also, these 2 interceptions coming against the second team. Now, am I concerned? No. I'm still not concerned because he continues to throw some amazing passes, and just the accuracy is all there. I was listening to NFL Network's coverage of the, back to camp weekend, or whatever they call it, back together weekend. And they're like, yeah, he's everything as advertised. he's that. He's got the confidence. He's got the locker room around him, and just all the stuff that we hear about Caleb Williams. It's different than with Justin, because Justin, you would just have a terrible day and just awful day. And we were like, yeah, Justin just didn't make any passes, didn't make any throws, didn't, put it on there. Caleb, I feel like, okay, he still is making these giant splash plays, still getting the ball out on time, which is, I know, a question that some people had. Still learning. He's still developing. You're right. Don't put your bets in for everything over on him yet, but I still think it's looking good for the future of the Chicago Bears. Also, another piece that I do want to talk about is that Montez Sweat hit Caleb Williams' arm again and stripped the football. Right after that happened, Matt Eberflus goes up to Montez Sweat, basically pulls him aside, and he's out for the drive. Because, hey, you don't do that to the quarterback, and I think he just wanted to send a message like, listen, I know that you're trying to strip the football. I know you're trying to play as hard as you can, but you don't want Tyson Bagent in there over Caleb Williams, right? Like, you want Caleb, you want him to do well. You don't want him to get hurt. So Matt Eberflus trying to lay down the law a little bit. And the thing that I teased earlier on to this episode, on Tuesday, we will know more about when Caleb Williams will actually play. Matt Eberflus said they'll officially announce it on Tuesday. What are you hoping for? For those that are watching out there on YouTube, let me know. What are you hoping for? Because to me, I would love, I selfishly want to see him for a drive. And I know that we're not going to see Keenan Allen, probably not see DJ Moore, maybe see Rome Odunze. I just want to see number 18 throw. I just want to see him in a Bears uniform. I just want to see that. So selfishly, I want to see it and also get him some practice snaps. So that's my feeling on it is I would love to see it. I want to see it because he's still a rookie. I don't think that we're going to the Super Bowl. If we are, awesome, right? I want to invest in the development of Caleb Williams, and I think snaps going against other teams, other players is going to be something really good for him. Yet again, I'm not saying, hey, throw him out there for an entire half, but just get him acclimated to what's going out there, right? This is just another preseason game, so treat it just like a preseason game. But next, we have the secondary. So secondary, and then we have other notes that we'll kind of wrap up with. And all that I got to say about the secondary is people are saying, these guys got the swag. These guys are confident. This is their second year playing together. And you can tell that because just the way that they interact with each other and interact when someone's throwing the football. So more and more people saying this secondary is just looking good. They're gelling together and they're playing very smooth and confident out there. Yet again, Kyler Gordon still hasn't even been out there, but they're saying it's the safeties. It's Tyreek Stevenson playing with Jalen Johnson. They're just a very confident group because, hey, they're just very, very fluid together because they know where each other will be. And last but not least, the other notes. So a couple notes. I got kind of 4 little notes. First off, Ian Wheeler continues to turn heads at the running back position just because of his pure raw speed. We talked about it at the beginning of training camp that he's going to turn heads, continues to turn heads. Someone to watch out for the Hall of Fame game. Cairo Santos missed 3 kicks from 51 yards to end the practice, so not a great way to end the practice. Also, Matt Eberflus apologized to the fans for practicing on the far side of the field when everybody was coming out, which if you have not been out to the Chicago Bears practice facilities, basically you have the stands on one side or there's like two sets of field, 2 pairs of fields, right? And sometimes they might run and one of the fields, there's the far side field. In that far side field, there is no public bleachers around that. So us as fans, you go into the bleachers and you have to watch all the way past another field to see what's going on. And it's hard because you got people all around you. And then also they're super, super, super far down. So Matt Eberflus apologized because he's like, yeah, sorry about that. We have to try and fix that. And the reason why they don't always practice right in front of the fans is because right in front of the fans, they want to make sure that the fields are okay. So they'll practice hard on one side, then they'll practice hard on the other side because they want to make sure that the fields are in good condition. They don't want to just absolutely destroy them when you have these 300-pound men running all over those fields. So it's nice to know that they're at least thinking about that because, yeah, they should be practicing closer to the fans so that we can see them. And they should be practicing on those away sides when they have those private practices. So hopefully they can get that fixed and start practicing closer to the fans because that's why we came there, right? We know how hard it is to get those tickets. But also, last but not least, I wanted to save the best for last because this guy's got no love. This guy right up here, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, people were like, I was hearing people talk about him during the practices. Like, this guy just gets open. He gets open for Caleb Williams, and that's exactly what we want to see. That's why we bring him in. You bring in the vet, that he's able to just get open in the red zone. Hey, we need a big play. You're going to number 13. You're going to Keenan Allen because he's a veteran. He's an excellent route runner, and he's also coming out of the slot. So you know he's close to the quarterback, and you run the way that you want. I know you're going to be open. But also, too, something really cool. Caleb and Keenan Allen seem to have gone over to the coaches to talk about some different plays. And this was reported out of CHGO. I believe Adam Hogue reported this, where they knew that they were having discussions about the specific concept and saying, hey, we got to do more of this. We got to do more of that, which is what you want to see out of your players saying, hey, we got this chemistry going. We know that we could probably do this pretty well if we're running X. So really cool to see just the growth of this team, the growth of this offense. Now, even though that, yet again, this is another day that the defense ends up winning and the offense committed a lot more penalties. But this is kind of how training camp goes earlier on. So hopefully next week we start to see less and less penalties and we don't have to report as much on that. And hopefully then too, we can see more and more of our beloved Caleb Williams. So if you like this show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're out there on YouTube, it helps out the show tremendously. And if you're watching out and if you're listening out there on all the podcast platforms, see if you can rate it 5 stars, whatever you're listening on. That helps out the show tremendously. Thank you all so much for tuning in basically every day as we're covering all this coverage. Thank you all so much. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know that she's a